Good morning. I would like to introduce our first assignment for social data mining class, which is social and open data sources. We selected the reference data to demonstrate our assignment 1. The data source we used is help.com. This website help.com is a business directory services and crowdsourced reviews form devoted to the local businesses. Provides the restaurants. It provides the services like ratings and reviews to the customers or clients, which are also which are provided by the customers and clients. Our first part in this assignment is web scraping. We harvested the more than 100 restaurants data entries from the help.com and then created a data model, stored that information in the database, and then created a web application to manage the operations such as creating the entries and then reading or retrieving the information, updating the changes, deleting the item. So our team members are Emeka, Thompson, Atilla, Acar, Nikita. I'm Monika Alapati, acting as a business analyst. Python developer as Emeka, Thompson. Database connectivity, Atilla, Acar, and then web application developer as Nikita. So the tools we used in this are Beautiful Soup, Python, Azure MS SQL, MVC. We used to do the web harvesting of restaurants data entries. Azure MS SQL to store the data. The stored data is used in the web application, and then retrieve the data retrieve the information, read and update the changes, delete the item. We used MVC. The next part is web scraping. It will be explained by Emeka, Thompson.
In this section, we are going to demonstrate how we scraped data from Yelp.ca using Python and Beautiful Soup. First, let's go to the Yelp site and search for restaurants. Next, we want to inspect the website and copy the URLs. To get our code running, we will need to import libraries Beautiful Soup, Pandas, CSV, Random, and NumPy. Next, we will set our header and provide description for our browser, and then we will set up the data frame for Pandas. To retrieve over 100 rows of data at 10 results per page, we will control the crawl rate using NumPy. We will apply this rate in our for loop using the URL that we collected from the Yelp.ca site. In the Yelp website, we will inspect each element using the CSS selector to get the data we want. We will now pick out tags that contain each data. We will then apply these tags and these classes to our mains variable. The sleep function controls the loop's rate between 2 and 10 seconds. We will then make another loop for each URL that we get in our mains variable. We collect the names, ratings, reviews, prices, categories, phones, address, and links. The next set of code is to store our data in the Pandas frame. We define the Pandas frame as restaurants. This code prints our restaurants to Jupyter Notebook and saves it as a .csv file. Now, this is the final scraping code. This code fetches the reviews from each site in Yelp.ca. It's basically the same. We make another loop to get each link in each URL we got. After printing, we get each of the reviews, and we can choose to save these as another CSV file. Now, this is how our final CSV looks like. We have 110 rows and we have 9 columns. For the reviews, we have a total of 809 reviews. Thank you.
Hey everyone, this is Atilla, and today I'm going to talk about the database part of our project. First of all, I'd like to show you our system architecture. And as you can see, source data is stored on Yelp.ca, and we focus on the restaurants which are located in Barrie, Ontario. So we have restaurant name, ratings, categories like Mexican pizza. We have also also price, contact information like business address or telephone numbers, and lastly we have the reviews for each restaurant. So we retrieve the data using web scraping and export the data into a CSV file. After we create the CSV file, basically we loaded the data set to our SQL Server database, which is running on Microsoft Azure server. This server and database is set to as public, which means anybody using any device can reach to the database as long as they have the login credentials. In other words, there is no firewall. And our web application is able to read, delete, update, and insert. In other words, manipulate the dataset. So this web application is using ODBC connection to do DML transaction. So this is basically how we design our environment. Let's get a little bit more detailed in how we designed this database. Okay. The second slide calls entity relationship diagram. On the left-hand side, you can see Microsoft Azure Server screenshot. We named the server as BDAT1007. We also named the database as BDAT1007 as well. So you may also see the tables over here that we created in the database. So we have the restaurant table, contacts, and the reviews. On the right hand side, actually, this is the entity relationship diagram. So we have three entities in the database. The one called restaurant, and the second one is contacts, and the third one is reviews. And the relationship, or in other words, joins between those entities are based on the restaurant ID, which is populated by restaurant name. So basically, each restaurant has at least one or more contact information, and also each restaurant has at least one or more review information, and all those environment is running on Azure SQL database. So let's keep data model information here. As I mentioned, we have the restaurant ID, which is the unique ID for each restaurant name, ratings, as you can guess, average number of stars given to restaurant, and category name, which could be Mexican pizza or something else, and the source link, actually restaurant HTTPS link. Basically, when you click that link, you will be able to see the restaurant information on Yelp.ca. Price, restaurant price information, contact type, either could be ADR or TEL. We populated this. If the contact type is ADR, then you will see a business address information on contact body, or if it's TEL, then you will be able to see the telephone number of the restaurant. And review body, as you can guess, the review information for each restaurant. So let's see an example here. California sandwich, Barrie, 4-star rating, Italian sandwich, link, no price information, ADR, business address, and the review of the body. And lastly, I would like to show you the loading and displaying data. So basically, this command reads the CSV file and then loads all the data to SQL Server. This is server information, database, user, and password information. And this is basically an example, a screenshot of the table. And let's see if I can show you over here. When I run this, you will be able to see all the data information for a specific restaurant. Thank you so much.
Hello there, my name is Nikita, and it's time to discuss the web application, making of which I took upon myself. The purpose of it is to showcase the CRUD functionality, create, read, update, and delete the entries that we have collected at this point. Of course, it also displays these entries and the one-to-many connections between the restaurant and the reviews, and between the restaurant and the contacts. To make it possible, I utilized the ASP.NET framework to compile the code, the ODBC driver to connect to the database, and MVC with Razor to build the requests and display the various views. Let me quickly walk you over the code. The application consists of 3 models populated from the database: restaurant model right here, review model, and contact model, as well as 2 models for pagination and details. Here's the pagination model and the details model. It also has the views themselves, the HTML pages with Razor layout used to populate them dynamically from the models. Each of those views has a unique layout appropriate for the purpose. The create view contains a form with interactable fields that can be validated before the contacts are saved in the database. The delete view only has a question to the user whether they are sure they want to delete the entry or not, and the appropriate buttons for each decision. Details view has all the information about the restaurant and link to the resource and 2 lists, one with contacts and the other with the reviews belonging to the restaurant. The edit view has a similar form to the create view, but with extra title and a link to the corresponding details page. The index view has a paginated table of all the restaurants with baseline information on them. And finally, the project view has the description of the application. All of that is being managed by a single controller, nothing fancy. The controller provides the database interaction functions to fetch data, create entries, update and delete them. Each of those functions utilize the parameterized queries to avoid SQL injections, in case we have some malevolent users trying to get advantage of our web application. The fetch function is used in every view that needs to display the data from the database, so basically every view except the project description. When the user opens such a view, like for example the details view right here, the data is being fetched from the database, put into the model, in this case the details view model, and then this model is being fed to the view and displayed to the user. If the view also has some interactable functionality, like for example an edit view, when the user fills the form and saves it, the data is checked to be valid, and if it is, it's sent back to the database, and the user is being redirected back to the details page. And if it's not valid, the user is being redirected back to the view. Finally, to make it all look pretty and to provide better user experience, I added classes and styles, some of them being hard-coded into the layout, and the others separated into a CSS file to avoid repeating the code. In this file, I also made sure to provide the support for smaller screens to ensure mobile compatibility. With all of that in mind, let us look on the resulting application from a user standpoint. Since it's published using Azure Cloud, I have set up a domain yelpcrud.com that redirects to it, and you can see it personally in your browser. That's again yelpcrud.com. And here we have it. As you can see, the application presents the user with the paginated list of restaurants with options to view, edit and delete them, as well as an option to create a new entry. If the user chooses to create a new restaurant, the application will present them with a form, upon filling which they will be redirected to the details page of the newly created restaurant. Let's do it. Let's call it the new restaurant. It's going to have a rating of 5 stars, it's going to be very expensive, and it's going to have European cuisine. And the source is just going to be some source we pulled from the internet. Let's save it. And we can see the details of this restaurant. Of course, since it's not pulled from Yelp, there is no way for us to see the contacts and reviews because they weren't pulled from Yelp. If instead we choose to see one of the real restaurants, there will be contacts and reviews. But let's check how it goes in the database. As we can see right now in the database we have this restaurant with European cuisine. I've made a mistake. And let's check the edit form. Here we have it. Let's correct our mistake. And let's add Canadian cuisine as well. And let's save it. Let's check it in the database. And right now we have both of those categories involved. We also have the delete form. We can click on it. Are you sure you want to delete new restaurant? Yes, I'm sure. We are being redirected back to the list. And we no longer have this restaurant in our database. Let's see one of the real restaurants now, like Davidson Country Dining. Here we have it. It was pulled from Yelp, and if you click on that, we will going to be redirected to the Yelp. It's going to have 3.5 reviews, 3.5 star rating, and it has 3.5 star rating, and it has the reviews we pulled from the Yelp website. Let us see it on mobile as well. Here we have it on mobile. It's going to become much smaller, and it displays correctly. It also displays the list correctly as well. Finally, we have our project description page. Let's see it back on the desktop. This is the page the user can see all the details about our project and to figure out what's going on with it. I hope you like what you did. This is Nikita Grebnev, signing off.